Have you ever seen one of those self-help YouTube videos in which a guy yells at you to grind alone and to separate from the herd, to be different from the pack, and to be self-made? I think this is one of the biggest lies that is being told in this self-help community right now. Grinding alone and this lone wolf mentality is against human nature. So there's this narrative that basically glorifies self-sufficiency. These people tell us to be hyper-independent, to make it on our own, and to thrive in solitude, when that is actually not what we're supposed to do. Good relationships are the most consistent predictor of a happy life in human beings. So if we deprive ourselves of that, we are not becoming more successful, we're becoming less successful, okay? It's been proven that to be alone for too long actually leads to reduced self-esteem and is actually bad for our health in the long run. And it could even be worse than smoking or having a bad diet or being obese, you know? Why is social connection so important for us human beings? It is because this is genetically encoded into us. So the Homo sapiens was only able to survive because it was a species, or it is a species, that is able to communicate effectively. If you think about it, we're not particularly strong, we're not particularly fast or anything. What we can do though is we can use our hands, we can use tools, and we can communicate and form social bonds. And this is the reason why we survived as a species. So it only makes sense that it is ingrained into us to form social connections. And therefore it makes sense that when we go without social connections for too long, when we deprive ourselves of that, whether that's unconscious or conscious, we experience a phenomenon that is called social pain. And actually, this pain activates the same circuitry in your brain that is activated when you experience physical pain. So it serves as a signal to maintain relationships, to repair relationships, and it's a motivating signal that is ingrained into us. What happens if we ignore the signal? What happens if we feel alone, but we still continue to tell ourselves to keep grinding and to keep going because this is what we need in order to be successful? What actually happens then is that our ability to self-regulate decreases. And maybe you see the problem here. This is a vicious circle we're creating here. So we want to self-improve. So we go to YouTube, we watch these videos that tell us to grind alone, that tell us to separate from the herd. So we do that, and what actually happens is we get these signals that are ingrained into us. We get these pain signals of loneliness. We want to connect with people more, and we actually take this pain and this feeling of loneliness as proof that it is working, you know? And then what happens after a while is that we actually become worse. We can become worse at disciplining ourselves. Our diet gets worse. This has been proven, okay, in studies, that people who are lonely, they tend to overeat. They tend to not pursue their goals. They tend to quit earlier, no matter what they're doing. And this is exactly what you don't want to happen. But this happens if you isolate for too long. And maybe, or what I can think of, what could happen then is that people think that they're not good enough. People think that they're not doing it right. People think that they're not being extreme enough. And then they isolate even more because they feel like they're not improving. And this is a total vicious circle that we're creating here. And I really want you to break out of this circle because it's just not necessary, okay? What happens if you really hold this up for a while is that you also tend to experience social interactions as more negative. So even if you have a positive interaction, you don't get as much reward from it. You don't experience it as positively. And if you have a negative social interaction, it really gets ingrained into your brain. So your whole perception of social connections changes if you deprive yourself of them for too long. And this is actually proven that this changes your cognition. One could ask themselves, okay, where does this notion even come from? Where does this narrative come from? Why do we feel like we have to isolate in order to be successful? And I think that what many people get wrong is that they confuse two things. They think that they can't be autonomous, they can't be independent if they have social connections. They are in this all or nothing mindset that is also really trending and popular in the self-help community right now. And actually, there's a theory that is called the self-determination theory. And it says that there are 3 things that people need in order to achieve psychological growth. The first thing is autonomy. So people need to feel that they're in control of their own actions. They need to feel like they have the steering wheel, like they're sort of the captain of their own ship, you know? Second of all, they need to feel competent in the things they're doing. They need to feel like they are learning skills that will help them achieve their goals. And the third one is connection, okay? So this is also one fundamental pillar of personal growth. You need to experience a sense of belonging and attachment to people in order to be successful. And what I think people are getting mixed up is that they think that the relatedness, the connection part, is interfering with the autonomy part. And what I can't stress enough is that these two can go hand in hand. These don't rule each other out. The problem with many human connections is that people tend to get codependent. People tend to completely change their sense of self for someone else in order to be liked. They change how they act. They change how they dress. They change everything to be perceived differently. And I see how you could fear losing your autonomy whilst doing that. But actual social connection is not about changing yourself. It's about being authentically you and having connection while doing so. So here's my advice. See relationships as fuel and not as chains. Instead of thinking that depending on others, that asking for help, that feeling the need to socialize because it makes you feel good, makes you weak, actually, it can make you stronger. Secondly, you can still maintain autonomy while seeking support, okay? You don't have to give up control just because you're asking for help. You can choose who you ask for help. You can choose how to ask for help. And you can also set boundaries when asking for help and when talking to other people. This is something I really need you to remember. Don't confuse the two. Seeking support, seeking social interaction doesn't mean that you're losing your autonomy. Also, don't measure your success by how independent you've become. Don't measure your success by how free of social connection you are, by how free of other people you are. Measure it by your own personal growth. And as we learned, that is just inherently tied to social connection for us human beings. Also remember that the only way to really build competence is through collaboration, because if you isolate, you limit yourself to your own ideas. You are only stuck in your own head, and interacting with people, cooperating with them makes you come up with more innovative ideas. You can get feedback. Other people can hold you accountable, can show you where you're going wrong, and they can also give you access to knowledge that would take you ages to acquire yourself. So don't ever think that social connection is holding you back when it actually is boosting you and it can move you forward. I hope that I could somehow debunk this myth of this grind alone mindset, because it's just, quite frankly, not true. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I see you guys in the next video.